Hey guys, Nova Bushida here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing alright. And today we're going to be talking about a new video where the Monster Hunter Wilds developers talk about weapon changes. A video from IGN. And we've got a lot of interesting tidbits in this video. But I'm going to give you guys a warning. There are weapons we haven't seen in any other trailers going to be shown in this video from the footage given to us from IGN. So if you don't want to see that, just put the video in the background and you can just listen, because we've got a lot to go through in this video, which is really interesting. Let's get into it. Now, one of the first things they talk about in this video is looking at previous games and bringing some of the positive parts of each weapon, keeping to their traits, but bringing them forth into newer games, while at the same time balancing between new visions for the weapons and the new vision for the game they're going to be in. Now when it comes to Wilds, we can see that in the offset attack or the clashes, where now the gameplay has moved into a more interactive system where it's not just you take your turn, then the monster take turn, and you take your turn, and you constantly waiting to find your opportunity to strike at the monster. Now if you understand the monster correctly and you have enough skill, you're able to prepare yourself for your turn as soon as the monster takes theirs. For example, if they're coming to you, you can prepare yourself for offset attack or clash or any other iframes or dodges you have to strike back effectively. And at the same time, when you're even attacking, certain weapons have abilities that can counter or evade a monster when their moves are coming their way at the same moment. So this is an interesting shift in the gameplay. We've seen bits and pieces of this in Generations, in Rise, and now we're seeing it more in Wilds, but in a new way. So it's very exciting, and I really want to see where it goes in the end in this game. And one of the cool things, if you can notice on the screen right now, they're actually showing a new hunting horn. This is Rey Dau's hunting horn, I believe. And if you see some of the songs at the top of the screen, we see it as Attack Small, Fire Resistant Small, Sonic Waves, and Echo Wave Thunder. Now I don't know too much about Echo Waves. I haven't used it much in the 5th gen, so I don't know if this is a new Echo Wave, but it definitely seems like it to me. So I'm wondering if each weapon, depending on the element, you'll get an Echo Wave corresponding to that element or status, which is very exciting, and I really can't wait to test it out. But apart from just the songs, look at the weapon itself. It looks awesome. I love the colors. It really reminds me of those type of ancient gods. I think it's Japanese or Chinese folklore gods where they have the symbols around themselves. I don't know too much about it. I've seen it before. I definitely remember seeing it in One Piece as well, actually. So down below, if you guys know what this is, give me some information down there. I'd appreciate it. Now, one of the other parts they talked about here was light, heavy bow guns and the bow itself, and having to balance it for the new game. One of the main things they were thinking about is ammo, and adding in more basic ammo types that don't use any resources. And it makes sense for this type of world, as in this game the whole idea is being able to be free with your hunting, going about, traveling, fighting whatever's out there, doing your objectives, not constantly having to go back to town, having to go back to camp and restock. So it does make sense for these weapons to feel more free in this type of game. Otherwise they'll be limited to always kind of being near camp to restock. Now going back to the old gen, there were many times where my friend Inferno, who does play a lot of light bowgun, heavy bowgun and insect glaive, but never mind the insect glaive for now, and there were many times where he'd ask me to hold on to bitter bugs or certain ammo pieces for him or so on, because in some hunts he would run out of space and he would need me as an extra storage. So this just shows why in this game they are changing that mechanic and giving bow users more freedom, which even though I'm not a bow user, I do understand, and I think it makes sense overall. And I hope that's exciting for all you bow users out there. Capcom have got you, don't worry about it, even though you guys are freaking OP. And as it's on this, we can see a new heavy bowgun here, and I think this is Ajarakan's heavy bowgun, and it's got some really cool animation on it when he shoots. Like, it feels like it's actually properly reloading in real time. I really like that. The nice details they've added is amazing. A couple shots later, they also show Duna's heavy bowgun, I believe, so this is interesting to see, and it looks really nice, I gotta say. And next we see a Greatsword user, I think it's Rathian's Greatsword, and they're on the secret. And at first, I was unsure if this was a Greatsword because I actually never really used the Greatsword mounting attack moves in the demo, but the way he's swinging the weapon, it's pretty damn fast. I don't know guys, just seeing them swing the Greatsword so easily, and the armor of Ajarakan, it really reminds me of Lu Bu from Dynasty Warriors. If you know, you know. Anyway, going forward, they talk about how they use the Greatsword and slow weapons in general as a way of balancing their games, as they feel like balancing the games around the slower weapons and building up from there to the faster ones is much easier. I can imagine the reason there, if weapons that are slower can handle the speed and abilities of monsters, that means faster weapons should be able to handle those fights as well, rather than if they start in the faster portion and they balance it around there, Could you imagine a monster that can only be fought with dual blades with its movement and speed, and weapons like the Greatsword trying to keep up with that? That's gonna be a problem. So it's interesting to see how they balance the game in general and the fact they focus it around slow weapons. It makes a lot of sense to me, and it's nice to see Capcom are looking to think about every weapon as they balance the game and try to make game much better for each weapon. And they talk about this even more later on, which we'll get into soon. Now, one of the great things they talked about in this interview, and I'm gonna play this clip here so you can just see it in full.
装飾品はワールド式に近いんですけども、特定のスキルの能力がついた装飾品があって、それをこう、武器だったり、防具のスロットに入れることでそのスキルが発動できるっていう形にはなるんですが、そのスキルの1種類の、スキル、複合スキルじゃなくて1種類のスキルであれば、いわゆる錬金的なもので、作ることができます。ですので、このスキル絶対手に入らへんみたいなことは、今回ない。でも最大効率を目指そうとすると複合したスキルの方を目指していった方がより別のスロットを使える形になりますので、なので、ワールドの時にあった強壁樹全然出ないもうまさに被害、僕はランサーも使わなきゃいっぱい持ってたんですけど
もう全然出なかった、最後まで出なかった
という声もお聞きしてますので、そうした対応は入れています。はい。
So from Capcom's own words themselves, if it's a decoration that only has one skill on it, let's say attack or defense or so on, you can create them by using a new method called alchemy. And I'm wondering if it's going to be more like how it was with melded in World, or more focused on the older methods where you're just crafting it yourself through materials and so on, which it does seem to be leaning that way. And they really highlight the fact that you won't find yourself completely unable to get a specific skill in this game. And later on, they even laugh about the Iron Wall jewel being so difficult to find for the developers, which, yeah, one person can get many and one person can get none, but if it's vital for the weapon you main set, it's kind of disheartening, the fact that you can never get that one decoration that you truly need. That's why, in my opinion, I've always preferred the older mechanics when it comes to just crafting your decorations. I much prefer just to be able to craft my decorations and at least get what I need as a baseline, than having a talisman just to finish off the extra touches. Now, it seems like they're trying to do a mix of both here. You can at least craft your stuff that you need if it's a single skill, but if there's multi-skill things, it seems like, yes, like Monster Hunter World, you're gonna have to farm it. How bad is the farm? We have to wait and see on that one. But it definitely seems like the Capcom team have been paying attention to people's plights when it came to the system in that game. And I get it. In that game, Capcom wanted to add more replayability to get people to really want to grind to get certain things. The problem is, if there's too much RNG, it's not very enjoyable for fans. It's hard for them to actually visualize when they're going to get a certain reward. I think systems are much better. Even if they take a long time, I think it's much better if they can actually see the progress visibly, and it's not just a random hope and prayer after every quest to get what you want. Personally, I think game systems that rely too much on that are failings on how to bring enjoyment to the player. The reason they've done it that way is just to blow up the game time. It takes players to actually play their game rather than to add to the experience overall. I would hope that more developers think about RNG and how they implement it into their games and don't use it as a way just to pad their games, but more of a way to add unique situations for hunters and to add unique situations for players in general. Because I do think RNG on this scale is a bit lazy, but they seem to be listening and understanding what people had issues with, so let's hope for the best in Wilds. Now, the last thing they talk about means a lot to me, and I'm sure to many of you watching this video and who watched that video as well. They talk about how getting further into the game, when monsters get harder, certain weapons may feel better to use against those certain monsters. One thing in particular I've heard from one of my friends in real life, using Switch Axe on Fatalis was much easier than using Charles Blade for him, or Longsword, so he used that to take him down. There are some certain fights that you go further and further, the game gets more and more difficult, and in some cases your main weapon, the weapon that you take into most battles, may not actually perform as well in those fights, and that might lead people to then leave their main and then go for other ventures to play other weapons just for that challenge, which I don't personally hate too much. I think it's nice for people to have more experience with different weapons and just to really live the rest of the game, because there's so much content in Monster Hunter, there's so many weapons, there's so many different ways to play, and just sticking to one weapon I think is a detriment to every single hunter out there. But saying that, I do understand the need for monsters to be balanced better, definitely towards the end of the game, that a monster doesn't seem unbeatable with a certain weapon. And here they seem to be really thinking about balancing the game properly when it comes to the latter portions to make every weapon feel feasible to defeat a foe. Another weapon I think in particular was Greatsword and Elatrion. I've seen a lot of people complain about Greatsword and Elatrion, Hammer and Elatrion having to use elemental weapons with weapons that aren't known for elemental. Is kind of bad game design in my opinion, but it is what it is. It's things like that, right? Trying to think about each weapon when you're designing a monster, I think it's important. There are some people who don't want to play another weapon, they want to stick with the weapon. And yes, maybe a certain fight is harder with that certain weapon. They even state here, it may be harder, but with enough practice and the tenacity to fight through it, you will be able to defeat the monster in the end. And I like that type of ethos. I like that type of philosophy behind their games. I think it's just going to breed better designed monsters in general and more enjoyable gameplay for all. Even though I say that, guys, like I said before, I cannot understate the fact that more people should play more weapons. It's fun. Trust me, there's so many fun weapons out there. In every gen, I've picked up a new weapon, and it's been so good. It's been so good. And for the 6th gen, I don't know what I'm going to pick up, because I've picked up pretty much every single Blaze Master weapon. I think I'm going to go back to Dual Blaze, because I dropped Dual Blaze in the 4th gen. I haven't played it since the 4th gen. It was one of my mains in the 3rd gen, and I left it behind. So maybe in the 6th gen, Dual Blaze will come back. I dropped Longsword in the 5th gen. Don't touch the weapon. Maybe that will come back too. Who knows? Who can honestly know? There's so many different weapons to enjoy Monster Hunter, and I hope you guys will give them the light of day. Well, that's pretty much all we got for you today, guys. Let me know down below what you thought about this interview and what I've said today. Is there any particular things that spoke out to you, that piqued your interest and so on? Let me know down below in the comments. You know, like, subscribe, and also I've teamed up with Fanatical, so down in the description you're going to see a link to buy a copy of Monster Hunter Wilds for PC on Steam. There's a discount, so if you want to buy it there, you support me and you support yourself with a discount. It's a win-win in the end, supporting your boy and getting the game that we're all waiting for cheaper. You can say no to that. Anyway, guys, I'll catch you next time. See ya.